Billionaire hedge fund founder Ray Dalio believes there's a 35 to 40% chance that we're going to enter a civil war. And polls taken amongst Americans put it at around 43% that we're going to have a civil war. And lastly, Polymarket recently released a betting market where you can bet on the odds of a civil war happening in 2025 post Charlie Kirk assassination. So it seems like the world is in agreement that there's a civil war likely coming. And in this video, I want to explain to you how we can avoid that. So I think this meme that Elon Musk posted on Twitter does a good job of describing how people see the political landscape, where the left has gotten further and further left over the last few years. And of course, leftist Reddit didn't like this, so they made their own meme showing the left staying in the same place, but then the right going further right. Unfortunately for them, that simply isn't true. Me as a centrist, I've been watching this play out over the last few decades, and the right didn't really go further right. The right just splintered. The right has the Romney conservatives, Trump with his brand of Trumpism, far right with Nick Fuentes, and they're all infighting where they disagree on things like immigration and H-1B visas and tariffs. There's a actual analysis done on the diversity of thought between the left and the right, and of course it validates this point. The left has very little diversity of thought and the right has a bunch of diversity of thought. Why is there so little diversity of thought on the left? It's because the religion of the left is equality, whereas the religion of the right is an actual religion, Christianity. The foundation of everything on the left is the belief that everyone is exactly equal in every way across races and genders and sexual orientation. It's a religion because they can't prove that it's true, but they believe it anyway. The reason there's no diversity of thought is because you can't question this dogma. You can't ask, are Asians maybe 1% better in math? Okay, how about 0.1% better? It has to be exactly 0%. Because if you concede that it's over 0%, then it's a slippery slope that opens the Pandora's box of, does that mean other groups can be different? Are whites better at writing books? Are blacks slightly better at sports? Does that mean some unequal outcomes we see across different groups might not be because of discrimination? And that's very politically incorrect and dangerous thinking for a multicultural society. And so this dogma on the left is protected by Western political correctness, and they can't prove their belief system. They believe in it in spite of the data, as all of the data that exists out there contradicts their theory that all groups are exactly equal. The right thinks the left is stupid, but the left thinks the right is evil. This is a well-known expression, and in many ways it's why that shooter thought he was in the right to do what he did. He thinks that Charlie Kirk is evil. He thinks that way because he thinks equality is the highest virtue. So he thinks anyone who doesn't also prioritize equality above everything else, the only reason for it is that they don't care that some people have more than others. And they think, wow, that's such an inherently evil position. And what this far left person doesn't understand is the trade-off between equality and freedom. When you try to debate them on it, they just don't want to talk. They just use the ad hominem of you're evil. I can't talk to people who are evil. If you're not willing to debate, you don't really get to have an opinion. How do we prevent the civil war? We've got this polarized political situation where you've got the radical left and the radical right. They're in their echo chambers and they're both brainwashed. And how do we deprogram both sides? I've come up with 2 questions you can ask yourself as a litmus test. If you can't pass these 2 questions, you should step back from all political activity or commenting on it, because you're just a brainwashed idiot and your opinion doesn't matter. Okay? I realize that's like painful to hear. Here are the 2 questions. 1, do you have any opinions that agree with the other side? And 2, are you willing to defend and debate your positions? If you don't pass these 2 tests, mute yourself on social media and never talk politics again until you can pass these 2 tests. It's really that simple. Let me expound on that. With regard to having an opinion on the other side of the aisle, a lot of people don't realize it, but if you were an organic thinker that thinks from first principles, naturally, you would have opinions that align with the other side occasionally. And this is because the construction of the left and right is way sloppier than you think it is. It isn't just equality versus freedom. That's sort of an oversimplification. There's a bunch of different political alliances that come together to form the current left-wing landscape, and same with the right-wing landscape. So for example, the left is feminist and gay rights, but they also are pro-Islam, and Islam pushes for Sharia law, which is incompatible with feminism and gay rights. So there's an inherent contradiction there. And on the right, you've got Christians, and they're all about Jesus, But then Jesus would be way more of a socialist than a capitalist, and Jesus wouldn't really be pro-guns. So you have a contradiction on that side too. And so when you ask yourself, how do we end up with these strange bedfellows? It's because these political alliances oftentimes form simply through expedience. There's a lot of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay, well, let's shake on it. There's a lot of weird situations like that that come together when these political alliances form. And ideology simply sits on top of these political alliances. And so the ideology has to work backwards and justify why that's the worldview. And so you naturally, if you were an organic thinker who thinks from first principles, you wouldn't come up with these ideologies on your own. They're downstream to these strange political alliances. The viewpoints on the left and the right overlap way more jumbled together than people realize. So if you address each point from first principles, occasionally some of your opinions would land on the other side, just through sheer randomness. So if you talk about, oh, there's a new war breaking out between Israel and Palestine, or oh, what are your thoughts on H-1B visas, or hey, what are your thoughts on tariffs and escalating the trade war with China? If you actually bothered to research all these issues individually in an objective manner, occasionally you would side with the other side. So take me, for example. I am pro-choice. I'm not a fan of guns. I'm not religious or Christian, but I believe in free market capitalism. I don't find out what Rachel Maddow thinks, or what's the correct opinion for my tribe. What does Tucker Carlson think? I don't do this. When all of your opinions coincidentally align with one political party, it's evidence that you're not thinking for yourself and you're just brainwashed. You have your favorite political pundits and you just go, and you just take in their talking points and then just parrot them self-righteously at that. That's why the first litmus test is whether you have any opinions that align with the other side. The second litmus test being you're willing to debate and defend your position is because if you really believe these things, you should be able to defend your position. If you can't defend it, you don't actually understand your positions. If your motivations actually come from a good place, you should want to enlighten other people. In short, if you see your political party as your tribe, you're brainwashed. And I know this because I was raised in a cult and I'm super familiar with groupthink. What we need to do to avoid civil war is we need to transcend political tribalism and we need to address each issue from the ground up. That's how you deprogram yourself. And admittedly, this is going to sound insulting, a good 80 to 85% of people are not going to pass these two tests. Frankly, they're not original thinkers. They're just noise. And we don't need more useful idiots. We don't need more people just parroting talking points. So we want that 80 to 85% of people who are sheep to just bow out. Stop commenting online. Stop opining about politics. Stop sending out tweets. Just stop talking. You're not qualified. You didn't pass the two tests. And of the remaining people who are original organic thinkers, they'll actually have meaningful conversations with each other. They'll meet in the middle and let these people be representatives for your position. And it's my belief that of this remaining 10 to 15% of people, they would basically agree that UBI would solve their problems. This is how we can avoid the civil war, through each individual person, through their mind, because no single raindrop believes they're responsible for the flood. If each individual takes ownership of what's in their own mind and acknowledges their own shortcomings and says, oh, I'm brainwashed, we can prevent the flood. Let me know if you disagree and where you disagree, and see you in the comments.